This is the Travel Marketing Podcast, brought to you by Propellic, bringing you the news and insights and what's working and not working in today's competitive transportation and tourism landscape. From emerging brands to the most established professionals, these lessons of intelligent marketing will help your marketing plan travel further.
Today's an amazing interview. We just finished it, and I'm so sorry. I'm definitely going to butcher her name, but it's Barbara. I think it's Pliskowitz Camino or Camino. She will correct me after this episode. I apologize in advance. And the conversation that we had, I think it was about 45 minutes. We talked about everything from attribution and the lack thereof to brand versus performance to advertising and marketing for a attraction at Summit One Vanderbilt. She's the global director of marketing and CRM there, does an amazing job. And I'm excited for y'all to hear this. One more thing before we get started, I realized that most people don't know about the other assets and things that we do at Propellic. We have two things. Number one is called the Navlog. The Navlog is a bi-weekly email newsletter that goes out with everything that's new in travel marketing. Think morning brew for travel marketing or marketing brew for travel marketing. And then also, of course, we've got the podcast. We've also got a blog on Propellic Resources Group where we're basically covering all of the new developments in AI and organic search visibility, where there's a lot of change going on. So be sure to check out those other resources. And with that being said, we'll dive right in with Barbara. Super thrilled to have you here. I love the way that we just bumped into each other at a conference that neither of us necessarily had a lot of business being at.
True.
No, but I think it was a great show, and it reminded me that tourism needs to innovate. And one of the things that I absolutely love about you and just watching your LinkedIn is that you certainly are one of the types of people who isn't just sitting and waiting for other people to find things out and you to adopt them 5 years later. You are at the forefront of generally what I see in the space. So I'm curious. Right now, you obviously sit in a leadership position at Summit One Vanderbilt. You were at Merlin before that. How have you gotten to a point where you think, what interests you about preparing for the future of marketing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks for having me, first and foremost. I like to think of myself as an enthusiast for technology, and I always had a knack for trying things, pressing buttons to see what happens. Hopefully nothing explodes, and that's been true this far. And throughout my career early on, I learned that taking things at face value, whether it's the conversations that you're having with people or the technology, or especially the technology, you need to be careful with that. Many examples that I could tell you what things look like on the front end. And when we started digging into the platforms, to the results, the numbers, to the way we track things, to the way we measure things, they turn out to be different. And I think that's kind of carrying me through my career, right? Always investigating, always looking what's in there, always looking behind the curtain to see, okay, you're telling me great things, but what are you not telling me? And it's not that what you're not telling me is necessarily bad, but maybe for my business, maybe for what I'm trying to do, what you're not telling me is going to solve my situation.
I think there's like a certain level of intellectual curiosity that it's funny. And I've been on a soapbox about this lately. There's so much changing in marketing right now across the board, travel in any industry. How have you found, or are there any specific ways you've found I'm totally going off book, so I hope you're okay with that. I'll come back to our agenda at some point. How do you keep yourself educated and knowledgeable?
Oh, great question. I like to sign up to many of the newsletters that I can find out there. So anything from just a simple marketing brew through tech brew, TL, DR, but also things like Bloomberg and similar media posts. Lately, it's been one that I've been paying attention to a lot. They have a very nice format of delivering you the news and interesting you with what you're interested in and weeding out things that are not necessarily what you're looking for. So that's great. Conventions, conferences, meeting people out there in the world, even not necessarily specifically in our industry, the travel and hospitality, just going out there and learning, listening to how people do things, what problems they're trying to solve. That's really important. So I would say, frankly, I probably have two jobs. One, my 9 to 5, although lately it's 7 to 5, which is great. I can't complain. And the other one is anything before and after that when I'm trying to keep up with the industry and seeing what's out there.
You are preaching to the choir 100%. Okay, so now I will get back onto our agenda that we pre-discussed. So you've been doing marketing for a couple years, and I'd imagine there's maybe a campaign or a project that might have stuck out that you're pretty proud of. Could you walk me through something that you think stands out?
Yes, I'll take you back a few years to when I was still at Merrill Entertainment. We were about to open, or we were planning, working on opening the biggest Legoland theme park in the world. Definitely heard of it. It's in Goshen. It's literally called Legoland, New York. And I happened to become in charge of their digital strategy. The way Maryland back then was set up, there's obviously a headquarters in the UK. There's a new openings team that is divided between different brands that Maryland has. And that new openings team does not hire a team for the specific attraction from the get go. They very much utilized the central teams here. And I happen to be in the position of the senior CRM manager for Northeast, so US and Canada. And I expanded beyond that because we went into anything from digital media, obviously through email. We also looked after their website. We had this great idea because we already had locations in the country, specifically Northeast, the smaller attraction of Maryland's. We were just going to start spreading the word. Obviously, besides everything you hear in the news, we had a very big database of people that were already coming to our attractions. So we figured, hey, why not just sprinkle a few words here and there, right? And start asking people if they're even interested in signing up to our own database. I do believe that building your database before going into market is a pretty big thing. At the end of the day, I have not seen yet a campaign where you don't do that and beat the ROI of a campaign when you do that. So that was exciting. We spent
I'm curious. So Summit One is fairly new, right? Was it how many years?
three and a half,
Okay.
and drum rolls, 7 million people this week.
Whoa. Okay. Congrats. I'm
Thank
curious
you.
though, because you obviously at Merlin had an existing CRM. That's what you
Mhm.
oversee now. Speaking to before we come back to that specific campaign, how would you go about how do you build that list of people you want to get in touch with if it's a new launch?
Yeah, great question. So obviously working with your brand side of the house and PR and getting your word out there throughout whatever media that you want to put out there is essential. But I'm a big believer in SEO, although people say that SEO is dying right now. I feel like we're back into the days when everybody was saying that email is dying, which clearly was not true. Maybe changes are happening, but the efforts are still there. So positioning your websites early on, right? Getting yourself in front of partners locally, specifically. So for New York City, think Time Out New York, think Bucket Listers, think Secret New York City. Just spread your word out there, get people interested, get people listening, and then don't forget you have to give them a place to actually sign up to tell you that they're interested.
Something that you would like, other than sign up for updates, has there ever been a prompt that has worked particularly well?
Yes. So what we did for Legoland New York and what we're planning to do for the Paris location of Summit is it's not only sign up for updates, but we want to give you a little bit of a story of who we are, what you can expect. Maybe we can give you the opportunity of, hey, come to the opening. Something tangible at the end of the day for the people is important. Yeah, everybody wants update, but nobody really cares about them. For New York, what we did was we released a limited volume of what was called first to play tickets. So say a year ahead of time, you could purchase 1,000 tickets for people that can come in before the park even opens, play in the park, review it, tell other people what it feels like, and then after the park opens, come in whenever they want. So those types of strategies is probably what we're going to look into.
Got it. So going back to just that launch at the Legoland property, what channels did that marketing campaign go out on? What were the results?
Yeah. Still one of my proudest moments. We ran a true lead generation campaign on social media. So back then it was Facebook and Instagram. We had 16 different tactics that we were able to derive from the data, thankfully, that we had for other locations and other parks in the States, right? So we had people who just live in Utah and travel to California, or live in, I don't know, Ohio and travel to Florida, right? But we also had people who live in the Northeast and travel to both of those locations. So we were able to really do a cool interest targeting, those types of things. I think we ended up having 94 different creatives for those 16 tactics.
Wait, how long ago was this?
Oof, 2018.
So
The
this was
park
before
opened.
you could click a button and have 8,000 creatives. Okay.
Oh, believe me, it was. But that it comes down to, do you love what you do? I grew up on Lego sets, building with my family and learning myself how to be creative. And then you happen to find yourself working on that brand and your entire desk is covered with Lego sets. So you don't mind
That's
contributing
awesome.
your weekends to it.
What's the story of the rocket ship behind you?
The rocket ship. That is Falcon 9, one of the SpaceX rockets. We already talked about me doing the zero gravity flight. I am absolutely obsessed with space. If you could see my actual office, there's posters of rockets, there's Lego sets of spacemen. I want to go to space one day. So, to your point, I'm manifesting.
So I filled out a registration form for the Adventure Tourism Trade Association the other day and said, what category do you service? And it listed like adventure tours, it listed overland cruise, and it had space listed there. And I'm
Really?
like,
Did you check that?
yes. Of course. I think it's within our lifetime. It's like I watched a video from 10 years ago. It was like I was one of the first 9 commercial space tourists, and now we've got Katy Perry going to space.
Hashtag jealous.
Which was the best takedown of the century.
So let's talk about it for a moment. Years ago now, a couple of years at least, I was targeted with ads from Virgin Galactic.
Okay.
Are a little behind, I guess, but still promising people. They have that cooler plane that looks like 2 planes. They don't have it yet, but that's what their plans are. And they were like, "Hey, do you want to go to space? Sign up." Which kind of piqued my interest. And clearly, I must be searching for a lot of things space really related to get targeted by that ad. But then I go to the website and I go to sign up. There's no information about the pricing, schedules, nothing. I sign up and I finally get an email, and it's a lot of money just to put yourself on the list, right? And then much more to even go up there. So it was interesting for me to understand their targeting. I get that they probably, for people like myself, just want to do the FOMO and hype and spread the word rather than actually get me up there. But it was fun to for a moment.
I feel like you might also be flawed in assuming that the media buyers knew what their audience was.
At least they should look for the income levels, right?
Here's the thing: they're probably using platform income, which is top 10% of zip codes, and you're right in the middle of New York City. So that's the thing. Like those income classifications on the upper end, where you're talking about targeting people that have excess of $1 million in income or excess of $5 million in assets, those like don't work. Has been our experience.
That's a valid statement.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's one of the struggles with luxury travel. So anything else to say about the positive campaign before I start drilling into something that was a complete and utter failure?
26 cents on the dollar for a lead and sold out our first
Define
product.
lead?
So a person that gave us their email address.
Okay, and then do you know what the impact was on actual registration from that, or was there data disconnect?
When you say impact, what do you mean by that? How many?
So of those leads that you generated for the email list from that campaign, who was actually bought tickets to the park?
Good question, because also interesting part of the story is that the moment we went on sale and a month after, I left the company. So I wish I could look into this. Just didn't have a chance.
Maybe you'll sneak a conversation.
But somebody did, because we did sell out. So that's, I know.
That sounds great. I don't think I've heard of anybody that can get qualified signups for 26 cents. So clearly you did something right.
Back then, yeah. Before the privacy updates. You remember that?
Clicks on Google weren't $35 each for, or $500 depending on if you're in personal injury law. So on the other end of the spectrum, one of the most humbling and favorite questions I ask is, what's the biggest campaign failure or something that didn't go as planned, and what went wrong?
Yeah. Listen, I like to say that It's not a failure, it's a learning moment, and that sounds so cliche. But for me, I'll go back to what I said earlier on. And again, because I have knack to actually look deeper into the system to see how things are connected, how they're working, what they're trying to present to us. And if they don't present the truth to us, why is it that they didn't? So a few years ago, again, at my previous workplace, we were throwing an event year on year. So first year, it was a success. Everything went well. And the second year, our sign-ups to the event, for which obviously you had to pay for to get entry into, just went absolutely to the level of almost nothing. And we were like, what did we do wrong? We pretty much executed, tried to optimize, improve our strategy from the previous year a little bit. So what is it that we're not seeing? What is it we didn't foresee? And as it turns out, it wasn't the campaign. We actually did get the registration. It was that our data was telling us that we didn't. So the connection between the platform where you were able to book the event and tracking of how you got there to book it, and the connection of our back then worked on Salesforce, wasn't working.
This is what you're telling me is this could have still been a radical success. The world will just never know.
Correct. So we're sitting there pulling our hair. Why didn't it work? And as it turns out, we didn't do the back end checks and things weren't
So
connected.
now we need to have a conversation around data integrity and tracking.
Let's
don't we?
go.
Yes. Oh
Let's
God,
go.
the CRM person, of course. We have a RevOps consultant right now that we're working with just to clarify and solidify some of our data. And that has been one of our methodology points is track the bookings. Everything is about the bookings, not the up funnel activity. And I 100% agree. That needs to be the first thing that's tested before anything is launched is can we actually see the down funnel impact of this? I'm curious from the tech standpoint, you clearly are at the front of a lot of what people are aware of and doing. I'll go back to the SEO piece that you shared and say that, yes, I think the SEO is still important. I think it's in the next 6 to 12 months going to look entirely different, entirely. We've got about 45 clients on that service line and we're completely redesigning it because it's the fastest changing channel right now. I'm curious, similar to that, technology and change, have there been any tools or things that you've been using lately that have been helpful with navigating the changes in the market, or any tools that are particularly stand out that you would recommend for other travel marketers?
I'll go back few years in time again to the moment where I would find myself in rooms with leadership and bring up to them machine learning or AI back 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it almost felt like I was just dropping a big cannonball in the middle of the room and everyone was scattering away because they were afraid of it. So I changed my strategy, and instead of saying those words, machine learning and AI, I started saying, let's try this new system that came to be and is looking promising to see if it's going to do anything for us. And then only after we prove it or not will we start naming it for whatever it is. You're probably very familiar. I don't know what CRM you use, but on Salesforce many years ago, they came up with Einstein. Yep. And their predictive analytics, simple things from the language you want to put in your content, telling you before you even go into market how people are going to respond to it based on the segment of your own data that you have. So you no longer have to go into an A/B testing post launch. You can try to figure out before it through understanding how people are going to react to your emotional tone in the copy. And lastly, simple thing, but being able to deploy the messaging to people based on the time that they are most likely to actually read it. Those three things, and still to this day, I find key in the way we design our campaigns. And we're lucky to find ourselves having tools to be able to do that.
And I think just one clarifying point is you don't need a $250,000 Salesforce license to do that. There's so many other tools that are doing that. I can't think of any by name, but you could train a really good prompt and give it a really big context window in Gemini and tell it, here's what I want you to look at, and put your messaging in and test it against the audience.
I agree.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about what's happening with tech right now is it's getting so heavily democratized. The most you'll pay for something that can change your workflows entirely is $20 a month. It's amazing.
Yep. We've come a long way.
A seriously long way. But now I will recognize after looking at our P&L for the past quarter that $20 a month times 25 people times 10 tools is a large number. but it's okay.
See, I'm the spender. I don't have to be
No,
on the other side.
you can ask my husband. I'm the spender too. Different context. I want to pivot the conversation a little bit to something that's time tested and true, and is not going anywhere anytime soon. Or brand versus performance marketing. There's the can of worms. Go for it. Have
Yeah.
fun.
It wasn't until I got to work at Maryland and then now at Summit that I started to realize, especially at Maryland with the Lego brand, how important a brand can be to a specific company or why it should be important. So here at Summit, I had the pleasure to work with this great person, Stacy Bierman. She's moved on at this point, but she took her time to really educate me and go from, we can just take anything we want and throw it out there, we'll sell, to, oh, hold on a second, what do we want to sell, or do we want to actually also create some sort of connection with those people and ensure that they understand, even though we change the creative, that they're still looking at Summit down the road, right? So I have to say my primary role obviously is in performance. I have to be selling tickets, but I understand now the value of the brand in that performance marketing. And I know that, yes, I see it as two different funnels, right? You can have your awareness funnel where you're just spreading out there to the people the word that you are out there. So imagine driving down the road and seeing a dealership, a Mercedes dealership, it's out there, but you're not in the market for Mercedes. So you're like, all right, it's there. So that's your awareness. That's my brand building. And then the other funnel of the conversion that still needs to include the awareness piece to it, right? You're driving down the road. Now you are in the market for buying the car. So I'm going to definitely target you because I know you're going to come in tomorrow and buy that, right? So I'll see a result right away from you, but I'll also hopefully gain something from the people on the brand side as well down the road.
I think that's one of the things that I've noticed in these conversations. This is like episode 40 something, I think, if I remember correctly, or 30 something, is that the larger the brand gets, the more important they look at, the more they recognize the power of brand. And I think that's a hint that smaller companies can take, is to maybe make your audience smaller and leverage brand a little more. It'll bring down your cost per acquisition pretty meaningfully if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
We're talking about channels within those branded performance segments. Like, what have you found to be the best performance marketing channels for ticket sales?
Performance channels, great question. Search, no question.
Search
it's
ads,
always been a search ads. I wish, and I am happy that we had privacy changes on social. That's great. But back then it was much more powerful for us in terms of delivering results. But one big thing, I don't know what do you think about it? I think within a year of me starting here at Summit, we tried connected TV. We were lucky to get a brand new campaign that we shot in the space, which is beautiful footage, and split it up and put it over there. And very close in terms of performance, ticket sales, and within last touch attribution as well, believe it or not, to search. We noticed that, obviously you have to have really good creative for connected TV. It's almost like you are in actual linear TV. So it's not as easy as go on search. And we did notice a drop off after a while. So we had two lines and that connected TV would start going down if we didn't update the creative itself. But second most powerful channel for us. In the beginning, we were keeping it quiet and saying, oh my God, I hope nobody else discovers this channel because it's performing so well for us. It's still doing extremely well for us. But
are you doing it like direct? Are you using a network, or what does that look like? How do you distribute that content?
We use MNTN.
Okay. Oh, cool. Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah. Which we've heard mixed reviews about. People have different feelings, especially to the way they measure things. But hey, we see it last touch, so we can't complain.
Yes. Last touch. Yes. I have things to say, but this is your time.
Say them. Please do. We don't rely on everything last touch. We're fully aware that we need to have a full funnel.
I maintain that attribution is complete BS across the board. Oh God, if this was 10 years ago and you could actually see what was happening, and I would be all on an attribution, but there has to be some sort of revolution. It's going to be one of two things. One, I think that the whole world is going to realize, okay, this is silly. We need to allow advertisers to see what they're able to do and at least somehow make that accessible. I find that to be very unlikely. Or number two, we're just going to forget about attribution altogether and go back to brand marketing, like happy marketers.
Please, let's not do that. Let's try harder. Let's try one more time.
Try harder, be better.
Yeah. How do you go about it right now? And what do you offer?
Attribution with something like CTV, I would look at just like you do last click, but I would also look at, or last touch, I would also look at incrementality for the audience.
Yes.
Marketing.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest piece, is that if you can actually see a lift, because that's the thing about CTV, it's a brand channel too. It's not just performance.
Yeah.
And that's the reason you notice fatigue with having the same creative. That's definitely not my area of expertise. My expertise is going to be on the digital, not television side of things, not video consumption. But I have personally seen CTV work really well as a brand channel as well as performance. Though your performance feedback here saying it was your second best channel, that was a pretty cool feedback to hear. And that's on Mountain or Imintien or whatever it's called. I'm curious, what's number one?
Believe it or not, organic.
Okay.
Organic search is biggest growth year on year for us, which especially in the climate that we find ourselves right now, is very surprising. But both impressions and search results, as well as clicks and revenue.
That's the thing. People,
happy.
you can't check out, you can't buy activities or ticketed attractions
Yeah.
through chat yet. That's changing very quickly with operators and things of that nature. I'm curious though, have you started to see any attribution from AI models?
Oh, big time.
Sweet. Tell me more.
We work with the awesome, I don't know if I can drop names here.
Yeah, please.
Entire Digital, awesome SEO company.
Awesome.
So they started us very early on. Then we set up Google Analytics to track attribution from different platforms. And it's cool. Can I just say that those platforms thought about adding the UTMs to their links so that we can actually track from it? Did you notice that?
Follow. So they're not passing a UTM in most cases. Actually, it was hilarious. So Google in AI overviews had a no refer, no opener tag by accident on their AI overviews. So you literally, like, it would show up as direct traffic. But about 3 days ago, they were like, oops, that was an accident. And they removed that from the code base. So now you can't actually.
Really? I didn't even notice that.
No, the refer stuff, it's based on the referring domain rather than just a UTM, which, like, I would say it was weird to see that Google intentionally was blocking their own reporting from showing that they were sending traffic.
Why did they do that?
It was
Tell
an
me.
accident. They published it was an accident. They got called out. This is, again, we've got 45 clients in this service on organic search. I've got an entire team that's all that we're doing is planning for the future of search and building software and building tools around how we can both be visible and optimize with vector embeddings and all the buzzwords that I could possibly pull. But when it comes down to it, I think the core thing people need to understand is that you're going to have search be not 10 blue links in probably 6 to 12 months, if not sooner.
What do you think of the AI mode?
AI mode, it's interesting. It's a much better user experience than Google search, in my opinion.
Really?
And I've been doing SEO for 15 years, so I'm the last person to say something like that. We're about to commission a study that I don't want to talk too much about because I know a couple people that would like to do the same thing if they have the idea, but ours will be out in August, and it's going to be a real user experience study of how people are interacting in travel when they're booking with AI overviews and AI mode. And there's a couple of cool organizations that are going to be sponsoring and helping us distribute that, from Focusrite to Arrival and a couple of travel companies. But it is the usage patterns that we're seeing show that AI overviews and AI mode, particularly AI mode, is far more engaging and retaining of an experience. I don't see any reason why Google would not switch to that.
Do you think it's trustworthy right now?
I think AI mode is much more trustworthy than AI overviews. AI overviews, you can trick it into making things up. There's actually this Mike King wrote a 12,000 word article that took me, I kid you not, 2.5 hours to read through at dinner because I had to read it like multiple times. Then I put it into Notebook LM and I was like, make a podcast about it. It's crazy. I'll send that to you after, and we'll post it in the show notes, the Mike King article on how people are using overviews. But there's research coming down the pike for that from Propellic in August as well. But enough about us. Back to you. So paid search does well for you. How do you look at paid social as a channel? What is the purpose of paid social?
Paid social, depending what channels. Meta, so Instagram and Facebook still do very well. We're in, I would say, top 3, top 5 channels when it comes to performance. They help us out a lot in terms of spreading words. So obviously, Summit One Vanderbilt is an experience that you can come in and see every single day of the year. But once in a while, we'll have events. 4th of July is coming up. We'll probably throw something up for that. So meta platforms are very helpful in terms of spreading awareness of that. Not to say all purchases off of ads for such events end up being the events purchases. They're very much still regular tickets, which is fine. TikTok is interesting. Once we find the right person on TikTok, it's easier for us to convert that person than it is on Meta, but it's much more difficult for us to find that right person on TikTok. We ran side-by-side tests where we attempted to trust the algorithm, where they claim to have found purchasers versus our own targeting, and our own targeting always, in terms of performance marketing, in terms of selling tickets, it always deliver more. Pinterest was an interesting one. Pinterest was on good days even better than Meta, but obviously we had trouble scaling, right? The audience, the volume of the audiences that we need is not necessarily there. So we play around. Right now we're looking into Reddit, which is exciting. I find myself on Reddit.
It has gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
Last couple of years.
Yeah. So let's see what happens. But we don't have organic presence on Reddit, so I'm a little worried about that. I know there are threads about Summit over there, but let's see what happens. We're going to probably activate soon. I'm excited.
Are the threads good or bad though?
Oh, the threads, the ones I saw were mostly good.
Yeah, the thing about the bad ones is Google has nav boost in their algorithm, which preferences things that people stay on and read longer. So the bad reviews typically get better rankings because they're more juicy and interesting.
Really?
Yeah. So nav boost, basically what it does is it's a part of their algorithm that got exposed in a federal probe that basically shows when somebody dwells on a page longer before they bounce back to Google. That's a preferential ranking signal versus a page that they go to and return. And that's heavily impactful in search rankings. And what would you read longer? A glowing positive review or a juicy negative review about the cockroaches and bugs and everything that was running around a hotel room?
You know what? At some point, and not necessarily only in our industry, but even under videos on YouTube, wherever you go, posts on any social media, once you see the first top bad reviews, you're like, all right, I know what this is about. I'm leaving. So my thinking is, all right, I'm going to go down the 100 reviews or 100 posts and be like, still talking about the same thing over and over again. That is negative. I get the point.
Yeah.
I'm
a drama person, so I'll see.
No.
So what's a channel that you've tested? So you said you're testing TikTok. That's funny because you mentioned that it's so good. Oh, it's better when you choose your own targeting versus when you let them, which is ironic deeply because TikTok is known for their algorithm, but that's specifically their user
I know, right?
not their advertiser side algorithm.
Yeah, not for us. We've had some TV shoots in the space, which was cool to hear our name and see our space in them. Obviously, we partner with local brands like, again, Time Out New York and similar. We probably say that we are built by New Yorkers for New Yorkers, so we try to stay in that realm. We're also very still figuring out what our brand is and with who the right partners are.
Do New Yorkers actually visit?
Yes.
Tell me more about that. Tell me about that segment because that's a very interesting. Like this is a very much a New York is a place that people who have not been to the U.S. go to, right? New York, Vegas, the cities of. So I can imagine it being incredibly drawing for somebody who's not been to New York. And personally, when I go to New York, I go to New York for work like 5 or 6 times a year. So I don't typically seek out an observation deck, although I did a couple months ago. I'm curious what it's like with the New Yorkers, though.
I think the point of us trying to redefine the category and not only be an observation deck, but also an art space that happens to be positioned in the space of your observation deck definitely helps us. We've put a lot of time, money, effort, blood, sweat, and tears into convincing New Yorkers. And we opened during the pandemic, so nobody was traveling. Everybody coming out of the pandemic, so everybody was trying to do something without traveling far just yet. Once we did that, it's interesting. Every single time any of those guests that visited that live in New York have somebody visit them, their family, their friends from anywhere in the world, the first thing that they think about now is Summit. So we'll get them. We got them the first time, whatever that might have been, and now they remember about us, and they'll come back and they'll bring people that are closest to them. And I think another good thing that works for us, especially with people who are visiting people who live in New York City, is that the greatest building in New York City that you can think about is, surprise, Empire State Building, right? But people don't realize when you go to the Empire State Building, you don't see the Empire State Building. You are inside of it. But when you come to Summit, you have it in full beautiful view. And I think it may be just the most beautiful view in this world.
Wow. There's a particular hotel that I'm in that I can see. I think I can see both. I think. In Madison Park. Can you see both from
Okay.
Madison Park? Yeah.
You should be able to, yeah.
You're facing, yeah, definitely. Okay. 2 more questions because I want to be respectful of your time. CRM. I'm going to pivot over there. I wouldn't say that's a substantial portion of our listeners, but it's also interesting because the larger a business gets, the more important your customer data is, because you need to be able to speak multiple messages to multiple people. How do you segment? Is it manual? Is it automated? Is it a mix of both?
A mix of both. But what I'm seeing here at Summit that I've never seen before in my career in any of the attractions or tourism spaces that I've been is, I call them sleepers. So you have your general new segment, people that just sign up, just found out about it, they're very excited, they're most likely going to convert. Then you have your active people, which whatever that definition for you is, those are your true fans and they're always going to be there for you. But at Summit, we have this quasi inactive segment of people throughout the entire world. And we've seen people visit from over 200 countries and territories already, which is amazing, that are signed up but are not ready to be coming to New York City there for Summit. So they're just waiting. So a lot of times in those manual sense, the ad hoc deployments that we do to those, say in general, 3 segments, we'll see that inactive segments that will have, I can't really speak about open rates because those are useless right now, but barely any activity in there that segment will make as much money as that active segment, which is much bigger and
you
more
could
ready.
actually like layer that on with external intent signals for when somebody like has travel intent and then target that person. That's probably a much cheaper acquisition.
Yeah, we use 2 platforms. We're testing Sojourn and Adara to capture those who are coming in and very much using custom audiences.
Yeah, I am. It's Sojourn recently started doing this on their, as a meta pipe. They're opening it up to a few advertisers.
Oh my God, let's talk about this because I'm literally just setting this up. Have you tried it yet? Have you heard of it? How is it?
We will talk. We can talk about it after.
Okay.
We use Adara for that, and I'll tell you. I can follow up after, and I'm going to get a call from somebody after this podcast because this actually has more than 2 listeners. Which, despite what I thought that we only had 2 listeners, it was 1 person that identified themselves last week, and my mother, of course. But no,
I love it.
It's funny. We'll follow up on that and the third-party intent targeting, because that is a really powerful thing for tours and activities specifically, because tours, activities, attractions are not the first thing purchased. So you already have the flight, you already have the hotel, and you can come back and loop back and target that person. And if that person's in your CRM already, that's going to be a very inexpensive customer acquisition, because you're already looking at a 20 or 30% media fee on top for those audiences anyway. So you have to lower the cost. Sorry, I'm getting nerdy. Last question.
I love it.
What's your source of truth? Sorry, go ahead. Before I ask that.
I was just going to say, talk nerdy to me, please.
Oh my God, that was hilarious.
Oh boy.
Before we go and start splicing this apart and making it into funny clips, which I hope to be able to do with this, what is the source of truth that you use for booking data? Where are you looking and saying marketing is working versus it's not working?
Yeah. That's a great question. And this really brings up my feelings about programmatic advertising, especially display types of things. For the longest time, and the platforms would just show us everything in green. Yeah, we're selling everything. But then we wouldn't see the bottom line of the actual tickets sold, right? Or the increase or any sort of impact. So we take what we sell, we slice it into different categories. Obviously, we sell B2B things like Viator, Expedia, Get Your Guide. That's a separate pile. And then everything else comes from the website. And then we track the lift in those sales. In the numbers day in and day out, and it's probably bad for you because not much sometimes can change every single day. But we do something in the platform. We give it a little bit of time. We look whether there was a lift, and if there was a lift, was there a similar lift last year when we didn't do anything? So overlaying the data year on year, even though we don't have much data because we're only 3.5 years old, everything we do, and sometimes people just tell me that I'm a broken record, everything we do comes down to how many tickets did we sell, or was there an uplift? Even when you think about traditional media, which is a separate topic for me, very interesting topic. But even if we go out, even if we go out with advertising on like links and digital display boards, whatever that may be, we try to tie that into any sort of lift or show or find out if there was any.
Do you have any incrementality or model that you use? How are you studying that?
It's all done manually and through brilliant minds of our data scientists internally. But we will also once in a while throw in actual live surveys on site. So as you're lining up to Summit, and especially if we're trying to do something new that we've never done to create that lift, we'll go up there and we'll say, how'd you find out about us? What convinced you to? Have you seen this ad? And then we'll do statistical significant audience, and everybody says, no, I've never seen it, I've never heard of it. It probably didn't work for us.
Yeah.
Those types of things.
That's awesome. I love that. It's fun. I probably interview companies anywhere from 5 million in sales to 2 billion in sales on this podcast. And it's so interesting to hear the varying levels of marketing evolution and sophistication. Clearly, your organization very much cares about tracking and attribution and making sure that the work you're doing is driving an outcome, which I unfortunately can't say about even necessarily more than half of travel brands or tourism related brands. So good for y'all. I'm happy that we've crossed paths and we're connected. I think that for anybody who is not connected with you or following you on LinkedIn, they should be. If it's okay with you, I'd love to drop your LinkedIn profile in our show notes.
Thank you. Love that.
Anything else you want to share? Anything you want to make sure that the 2 or 3 people listening to this get out of it?
Let's not get stuck in old ways. Let's be okay trying new things. That's what I would say.
That echoes the, if you do 10 things and one of them works, it was worth it.
I agree.
Even if none of them work, you've ruled some things out, right?
Yep, exactly.
You're a bad marketer. No, I'm kidding.
Eventually, you will rule all of it out, and the only thing that's left is what's working. So that's good too.
This was awesome. Thank you so much, Barbara, for joining me, and I look forward to getting to know you better.
Thank you, and I hope to see you soon.
For more empowering ideas, visit Propellic.com. We're on a mission to create more diversity in thought for the planet and dedicated to helping brands both large and small increase their reach through intelligent travel, transportation, and tourism marketing. Propellic.com.